It was a quiet night. The stars were bright, and the wind was soft. A man named Daniel was sitting alone in his small house, drinking tea. He lived on the edge of the forest, far from the city. His life was simple. He liked silence. But that night, everything changed. Suddenly, the sky lit up. A sharp flash of light raced across the sky like a falling star. It wasn't normal. It was too fast, too bright. Then boom! A loud crash shook the ground. It came from his backyard. Daniel jumped up, spilling his tea. He grabbed a flashlight and rushed outside. Smoke rose in the air, and the grass looked burned. In the middle of the yard, there was a small crater. At the center of it was a strange silver pod, no bigger than a backpack. It hissed softly, and tiny lights blinked on its surface. Daniel stepped closer, heart pounding. Slowly, the pod opened with a click. He raised his flashlight, expecting metal or wires, but instead, something moved. Something alive. A tiny figure crawled out of the pod. She was no bigger than a loaf of bread. Her skin was soft blue, her eyes large and glowing. She had long silver hair and tiny hands with only 3 fingers. She wore a strange suit, torn at the side. Her breathing was fast. Her eyes darted around in panic. The alien girl saw Daniel and froze. He took 1 step forward. She screamed. It was a high-pitched, sharp sound, like a bird in danger. She stumbled back, tripping over her own feet. Her tiny legs shook as she crawled behind a rock near the flower bed. She pressed her body against it, trying to disappear. Daniel stopped, his hands raised in the air, showing he had no weapon. "It's okay," he said gently. "I won't hurt you." She didn't understand his words, but she saw his hands, saw his eyes. There was no fire in them, no anger. Still, her small heart pounded with fear. She believed the old stories from her planet. Humans were giant beasts, monsters. They eat anything small. She was sure he would grab her, bite her, and swallow her whole. But Daniel didn't move. He sat down in the grass, a few feet away. He placed the flashlight on the ground and reached into his pocket. Slowly, he pulled out a small piece of bread. He tore it in half. He placed 1 half near the rock, then leaned back. The girl peeked from behind the rock. The smell of the bread was sweet and strange. Her stomach growled. She hadn't eaten in hours, but was it a trick? She watched Daniel. He ate the other half of the bread himself. Slowly, peacefully. He wasn't watching her. He wasn't chasing her. She looked at the bread. Her fingers twitched. Then, with careful steps, she crawled forward. She picked up the bread and sniffed. No poison, no traps, just food. She bit it gently. Then again, and again, warmth filled her chest. Not just from the food, but from something else. Something soft. Maybe he wasn't a monster. Daniel smiled. He didn't say a word. He didn't move closer. The girl stared at him, chewing. Her eyes were still full of fear, but now there was something new in them. Curiosity. For a few minutes, they sat in silence. 1 giant, 1 tiny alien. 2 creatures from different worlds. Then the girl stood up. Her legs still shook, but she pointed to herself and said, "Leia." Daniel blinked. "Leia, yeah." She nodded. He pointed to himself. "Daniel." Leia tilted her head, then repeated softly, "Danielle." He laughed. "Close enough." Leia looked at him again. This time she didn't hide behind the rock. She didn't run. She sat down in the grass, still holding the last piece of bread. For the first time, she felt a little safe. The stars above twinkled quietly. The forest was silent again, but something new had begun. Something strange, something beautiful, and neither of them had any idea what was coming next. The morning sun rose slowly, warming the grass in Daniel's backyard. Dew glistened on the leaves like tiny diamonds. Birds chirped, unaware that something not from this world had slept beneath their trees. Inside Daniel's house, The tiny alien girl, Leah, sat on a wooden shelf near the kitchen window. She was curled up in a clean, soft sock Daniel had given her as a blanket. Her eyes opened slowly. She didn't scream this time. She didn't run. She listened. Down below, Daniel was making breakfast. The smell of warm eggs and bread filled the room. Leah's nose twitched. Her stomach growled. She tried to hide the sound, but it was loud. Daniel looked up. He smiled. "Hungry, little one?" Leah didn't answer. She couldn't. She didn't understand human words. But she felt something in his tone, gentleness. Still, she was cautious. On her world, words meant little. Actions meant everything. Daniel walked to the counter and cut a small piece of bread. Then he picked a grape and a tiny bit of cheese. He placed them all on a small saucer and slowly lifted it up to the shelf. Leah backed away, her body tensed. She remembered the stories giants feed you before they trap you. But Daniel didn't force it. He placed the saucer gently in front of her and stepped back. Leah stared at the food. Her fingers twitched again. The grape was bigger than her palm, but it smelled sweet. She picked it up and took a careful bite. Juice spilled down her chin. Her eyes widened. It was delicious. She bit into the bread next, then the cheese. Different textures, different tastes, but none were poison. None made her sick. Down below, Daniel sat quietly at the table, pretending to read a book. But his eyes kept sneaking up, watching her every reaction. He didn't want to scare her. After a while, Leah looked down at him. She wiped her mouth with the edge of the sock. She tilted her head. Daniel saw her staring and raised his own piece of bread. He took a bite, smiled, then pointed at her. "Good?" Leah hesitated, then slowly nodded. He tapped his chest. "Food," then pointed to the bread. "Food." Leah narrowed her eyes. Fud? Daniel laughed softly. "Close, yes, food." She repeated the word again, more clearly this time. Food. They had just shared their first word. Their first piece of language. It wasn't much, but it was something. A small bridge between two worlds. Later that afternoon, Daniel took a pencil and paper. He drew simple pictures, an apple, a spoon, a cup of water, and said each word out loud. Leah sat on the edge of the table watching closely. Apple, spoon, water. She tried to repeat each one. Some words were hard. Others made her giggle. Her voice was soft and high, like wind chimes. Daniel didn't rush her. He clapped each time she got close. This became their new language. Food and pictures, gestures and sounds. A dance of kindness, slow and full of patience. That night, Leah climbed down from the shelf by herself. She walked across the table and pointed to a drawing of bread. "Food?" she asked. Daniel's heart melted. "Yes, food, one moment." He gave her a tiny piece, smaller than a coin. She took it and sat on the edge of his coffee mug like a throne. Her legs swung back and forth. She wasn't hiding anymore. But deep inside, Leah still wondered, why is this human so kind? What does he want from me? On her world, kindness always had a cost. No one helped without reason. So what made this human different? She would learn the answer soon, but not yet. That night, she watched him from the windowsill as he cleaned up and turned off the lights. She saw the sadness in his eyes when he looked at an old photo on the wall. A picture of a little girl with brown hair and a bright smile. Leah didn't understand who the child was, but she could feel the silence that followed Daniel like a shadow. Maybe he had lost something too, and maybe that's why he was feeding her. Maybe both of them were just trying to heal. In a world that didn't explain anything. Together, without words. Just food. Leah did not sleep that night. The sock blanket was warm, but her thoughts were cold. She had tasted food, learned strange words, and even smiled, but deep inside, the fear still lived. She sat near the windowsill, looking down at Daniel. He had fallen asleep on the couch with a book resting on his chest. His big arms were relaxed, and his face looked peaceful in the moonlight, but his size still scared her. He was massive. His legs were longer than her whole body. His hands were like giant machines that could crush her without trying. One sneeze could blow her across the room. Laia had grown up on a mining moon, where stories of humans were whispered like bedtime horror tales. They said humans were wild, strong, and ruled by hunger. That they once bit into an alien ambassador. Like fruit. Now, here she was sleeping under the same roof as one. In the early morning, Daniel began to move. He stretched his arms, yawned, and rubbed his eyes. The couch creaked under his weight. Laia jumped behind a plant pot on the windowsill. Her heart raced. She peeked from the side and watched him closely. He stood up, and just like that, the floor shook. One step. Another. Thud. Thud. He walked to the kitchen. She couldn't see him now, but she heard the water running, dishes clinking. Every sound made her flinch. Then suddenly crash. A spoon dropped on the floor. It echoed like a thunderclap to her small ears. Laia gasped and ducked under a leaf. Her little hands covered her head. Her breathing was fast. Her eyes shut tight, but nothing happened. No chasing, no roar. No giant hand reaching for her. Slowly, she peeked out again. Daniel was kneeling on the floor, picking up the spoon. Then, he did something strange. He spoke to it. "Slippery today, huh?" he said, chuckling softly. He wasn't angry. Laia blinked. On her planet, accidents meant punishment. Here, they meant jokes. Later that day, Daniel tried to offer her a new piece of fruit. This time it was red and soft. He called it a strawberry. He placed it gently on a napkin near the windowsill and stepped back. Laia peeked at it, then peeked at him. She didn't move. Daniel saw her fear and sighed. He picked up a tiny piece himself, bit into it, and smiled. "Sweet," he said. Laia slowly crawled toward the napkin. Her eyes never left him. She reached the fruit, touched it, then suddenly pulled back. Daniel had scratched his head. To him, it was nothing. Just an itch. To her, it looked like he might swipe at her. Like a sudden attack. Laia fell backward and rolled into the napkin. Daniel froze. "Hey, it's okay," he said softly. Laia's tiny body was shaking, her eyes wide with panic. She pressed herself flat against the napkin like she wanted to disappear. He didn't move closer. He just sat down on the floor, legs crossed like a giant child, and placed his hands on his knees. "I scare you," he said quietly. "I get it." He looked at his hands, big voice, big everything. "It must look terrifying." Laia tilted her head. His voice was soft again. She crawled up very slowly and looked at his face. There were no sharp teeth, no fire in his eyes, just kindness. Then he did something unexpected. He turned away. He gave her his back and stared out the window, like saying, "You don't have to trust me. I won't force it." That small gesture spoke louder than any word. Laia walked to the fruit. Again, bit it, chewed, looked at Daniel's back. He didn't turn. She took a second bite, then a third, then, carefully, she walked down the window frame, along the counter, and across the table. Step by tiny step she got closer to him. Daniel didn't move. She stood near his shoe. It was the size of her entire bed. She reached out, hesitated, then touched his boot with one small hand. He slowly turned his head. Their eyes met. Laia pointed to her chest. "Laia." Daniel smiled gently. "Daniel." Then she touched his boot again and nodded. She was still afraid, but now her fear had cracks in it. And inside those cracks, something else was growing. Not trust. Not yet, but hope. Rain tapped gently on the windows of Daniel's home. The sky was gray, and the air smelled of wet soil. Inside the warm house, silence sat between two very different beings, a lonely human and a mini alien girl. Still unsure of her place. Lia sat on the edge of the kitchen shelf, her knees pulled to her chest. She stared at the drops racing down the glass. They reminded her of escape pods falling through alien skies, just like hers had. Daniel sat at the table nearby, holding a warm cup of tea. He glanced at her now and then, but said nothing. He didn't want to rush her. Every small moment between them was a test of patience and space. That day, she had not eaten anything. Not because she wasn't hungry, but because something inside her felt strange, heavy, confused. A new kind of fear had taken root. What if he suddenly changed? What if all this kindness had a price? She had seen others smile before back on her planet, only to hurt later. Daniel noticed the untouched food beside her. A piece of apple, a drop of honey, a clean spoon the size of her arm. All left alone. He got up slowly and walked to the drawer. He pulled out a small piece of cloth and folded it neatly. Then, without a word, he placed it beside her and stepped back. Lia looked at it. It was warm, clean, and dry. A blanket for someone her size. She reached out, slowly, and touched the edge. Soft, gentle. Daniel didn't move. He just whispered, "For you." She looked at him, her eyes shining like wet crystals. Slowly she stood. Her feet were bare and light. She walked toward the edge of the shelf, then paused. The jump to the counter below looked far. She hesitated. She looked at Daniel. He had his hand resting flat on the counter, palm up, open like a platform. Lia knew this was it. The moment. She could stay frozen. Or she could try to trust. Her heart thudded like a warning bell. But she stepped forward, closed her eyes, and leapt. She landed on his hand. The skin was warm, the surface slightly rough, like old leather. She expected pain or fear or some kind of trap. But all she felt was stillness. Daniel didn't curl his fingers. He didn't lift her. He just stayed perfectly still. She opened her eyes and looked at him. Their eyes locked. No words. Just breath. Just a quiet moment in the storm of unknown. Then, with trembling fingers, she placed her tiny hand on one of his fingers. First contact. It wasn't just skin touching skin. It was wall meeting crack. Fear meeting courage. Pain meeting kindness. Daniel blinked slowly, as if holding back tears. He whispered, "You're brave." Lia didn't understand the word, but she felt it. She sat on his palm, curling her legs under her. The cloth blanket was still tucked under her arm. The rain outside grew heavier, but inside it felt warmer. She looked up at him and pointed to the tea. "What?" He smiled. "Tea, tea," she repeated. He dipped the edge of a spoon into the cup and offered her a tiny drop in a dish lid. She tasted it, eyes wide. It was strange, bitter, but not bad. Then she smiled. A real smile. Daniel leaned back in the chair, amazed. This tiny girl, once trembling in fear, was now sitting in his hand, trusting him, even if just a little. Later. That evening, Daniel built her a small corner house out of a tissue box. He cut windows and placed cotton inside. To her, it was a castle. She ran her hands along the soft walls. Her name written in small letters on the side. Lia. She turned to Daniel, raised a thumb and said, "Home." He nodded. "Your home," but neither of them knew. Outside the house, in the trees beyond the yard, something watched. A blinking red eye. A silent drone. Reporting. She was not as alone as she thought. And the storm was far from over, but for now inside the home of a kind human, Lia finally slept. Without fear. The night was quiet again, no more rain. Only moonlight filled the house through the curtains. Lia sat on top of her tissue box home, wrapped in her soft cloth. Her eyes were fixed on the human across the room. Daniel was sitting on the floor. This time, his back against the couch, staring at something in his hand. It wasn't food. It wasn't a tool. It was a photo. Lie, yet tilted her head. She had seen him hold it before. Each time he looked at it, his smile faded. Each time, the room felt colder. Curious, she climbed down carefully. Step by step, she crossed the table, jumped to the couch cushion, and then slid down a pillow. She walked across the carpet quietly, her tiny feet making no sound. She reached Daniel's boot. He didn't notice her. He was lost in the photo. Laia moved closer and finally saw the image. It was a picture of a small human girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old. Her smile was wide. Her hair was tied with pink ribbons. She was holding a teddy bear, standing next to a younger Daniel. Laia looked at the girl, then at Daniel's face. His eyes were wet. Tears. Without a word, he whispered, "Maya." Leah froze. That name, it meant something. His pain was wrapped in it. Daniel didn't see Laia sitting there, but he kept talking. Maybe to himself. Maybe to the girl in the picture. "You would have been 13 now," he said. His voice cracked. "You always wanted a puppy and a spaceship." Leah's chest felt tight. Not because she understood every word, but because pain didn't need translation. Daniel pressed the photo to his forehead and closed his eyes. "I should have been there. I should have saved you." Leah gently placed her hand on his boot. He blinked. Looked down. Surprise filled his eyes when he saw her sitting beside him, staring up. "I'm sorry," he whispered. She pointed to the photo. "Maya?" He nodded. "My daughter." Leah repeated softly, "Daughter." He gave her a sad smile. "Yes, she was small like you." He picked up a stuffed animal from a nearby shelf. It was old and a little torn. A white bear with button eyes. He placed it gently beside her. Lie, yet touched the bear's nose. Then she looked back at him and said, "Sad?" Daniel nodded again. "Very sad." Leah sat down next to the stuffed bear. She didn't know the whole story, but she knew. This pain ran deep inside him like a crack in stone. She wanted to help. But how? She was small. She had no magic. So she did the only thing she could think of. She reached out both her hands and touched his finger. The same finger he used to build her a home. The same finger that never tried to trap her. Daniel looked at her tiny hands holding his, and for the first time in years, he didn't feel completely alone. "Thank you," he whispered. Lie, yet tilted her head. "Safe?" she asked. Daniel blinked. "Yes, I feel safe." She smiled. "Safe home." That night, they sat side by side, giant and tiny, broken and healing until sleep took them both. But far above, in the darkness of the sky, a signal pulsed through the clouds. From the forest edge, the same small drone recorded the moment and sent it across the stars. On a cold ship far away, eyes watched the screen. "Target has bonded," a voice said. Another voice, sharper, colder, replied, "Prepare retrieval. The specimen has formed attachment. That will make things interesting." Back on Earth, Daniel and Laia knew nothing of the danger coming. All they had was the growing warmth between them. A warmth born not just from kindness, but from shared pain. The stars above Daniel's home no longer looked peaceful. Behind their gentle twinkle, something dark was moving, something watching. Leah woke before dawn. Her eyes blinked slowly as her small ears caught a strange sound. Low, steady, mechanical. Not from Earth. She stood at the window, looking toward the forest. The wind didn't make that sound. Birds didn't hum like machines. Something was wrong. Downstairs, Daniel brewed his morning tea. He smiled when he saw her climbing down the shelf like a little explorer, but her face was tight, her body stiff. "Laia?" he asked. She pointed to the trees and spoke one word he hadn't heard before. Her voice was sharp. "Huntrax." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What does that mean?" She repeated it. this time softer like a warning. Huntrax, bad. He walked over to the window beside her. The forest looked calm. But then he saw it, a shimmer. In the air, something cloaked. Something moving between the trees that shouldn't be there. What the hell? Leah grabbed his sleeve with both hands. Danger. They come. Daniel didn't ask questions. This time, he trusted her now. He knelt down. Do we hide? Fight? What do they want? Leia's voice trembled. Take me. Kill you. Daniel froze. His heart raced. Over my dead body. He didn't know how strong these aliens were. He didn't care. He wasn't going to let them hurt her. Suddenly, the air cracked outside like lightning without light. A shadow appeared in the sky, sharp and silent. A ship. Small. Black, like a dagger floating above the trees. Then a voice, deep and robotic, echoed through a hidden speaker. Return the specimen. She is property of the Atrith Research Guild. Have 60 seconds. Leia shrank back. She covered her ears. Her body trembled. Daniel stood in front of her. She's not your specimen, he shouted. She's free. The voice answered, cold as steel. 50 seconds. Daniel turned to Leia. Is there anything they fear, a weakness? She shook her head. Strong. Many, you not safe. Daniel grabbed a small wrench from the counter. I don't care. I made you a promise. I won't let anyone take you. Leia looked up at him. She saw it in his eyes. He meant it. Even against impossible odds, this human would fight for her. Her tiny hand touched his chest. You. Family. Daniel's throat tightened. And you're mine. 30 seconds. Daniel ran to the back door and locked it. He flipped the table and placed it as cover. It wouldn't stop a laser, but it felt better than doing nothing. Leia crawled up onto the windowsill, her glowing eyes scanning the sky. Then she saw something a flicker in the trees. A figure, tall, metallic armor. A glowing net in its hand. She shouted, Hunter. The door burst open. A tall alien stepped inside, its armor clicking with each step. Its helmet reflected Daniel's shocked face. Lie. You screamed. Daniel didn't hesitate. He threw the wrench. It bounced harmlessly off the hunter's chest. The alien raised its weapon, then crack. A sudden spark hit the alien's shoulder. Smoke hissed. Leia stood on the shelf, holding a tiny device no bigger than a coin. She had fired it with her own energy cell. The hunter staggered. Daniel ran forward and slammed a chair into it with full force. The chair shattered, but it bought a moment. The alien stumbled back. Daniel grabbed Leia and ran into the hallway. Where do we go? She pointed up. Roof. He didn't ask why. He climbed the stairs 2 at a time, kicked open the attic door, and climbed through the hatch. They reached the roof, just as the black ship hovered directly above them. A beam of light stretched down. Daniel held her tight. I won't let go. She touched his cheek. Then we jumped together. Suddenly bzzzzzt. A second drone appeared in the air. But instead of attacking, it flickered red. Then exploded. Another ship appeared, this one sleeker, silver, and marked with a different crest. Yeah. Gasped, my people. A voice echoed from the ship. This is Princess Leia. Stand down or face royal consequence. The black ship paused, then turned sharply and fled into the stars. The silver ship hovered gently, and a soft light surrounded Daniel and Leia. They floated upward safe for now. Daniel held her close. Princess. She nodded, tears in. Her eyes was secret. But you protect me even when not. No. He smiled. Royal or not, you're my family. As the ship carried them away from danger, Leia rested her head on his chest. And for the first time, they both believed they had found where they truly belonged. High above Earth, in the quiet orbit between stars, the silver ship floated gently. Inside, the walls shimmered with soft light. The air felt clean, smooth, almost alive. Daniel had never seen anything like it. Leah sat beside him on a small platform shaped like a flower. Her suit had changed. Now it glowed with soft lines of blue. A symbol rested over her chest, the royal crest of her people. Daniel watched her in silence. So many questions filled his mind, but he didn't speak. Not yet. He just smiled when she looked up at him. For the first time, Leah was not hiding, not from him, not from herself. She was no longer the frightened girl who crashed in his garden. She sat tall now, proud, confident, and glowing with purpose. Yet when she spoke, her voice was still soft. Still kind. "Daniel," she said, "they wanted to use me. My powers, my blood. But you only gave me food, warmth, safety." Daniel chuckled, rubbing the back of his neck. "Well, I didn't know you were a princess when I gave you that bread," Leah giggled. It was a sound like tiny chimes. "I want to give you something," she said. She reached behind her and opened a small case. Inside was a shining badge. She lifted it with both hands and held it out to him. "For bravery," she said. "For heart." Daniel took it carefully. "You really didn't have to." "I did," she interrupted. "My people follow rules. You broke them. You broke fear." He held the badge tightly. "And what about you? What happens now?" Leah looked around the ship, then back at him. "They want to take me to the royal planet." "But I said no." Daniel blinked. "No?" She nodded. "I stay with you." His heart skipped. "But why?" She stood, stepped onto his leg, and climbed into his lap. Her tiny hand rested over his chest. "Because this," she said, "is home." Silence filled the room again, but this time it was peaceful. Suddenly, the walls shimmered. A figure entered the chamber, a tall alien with golden armor and glowing eyes. He bowed to Leah, then looked at Daniel. "The council respects her choice," he said. "And yours. Earth will be protected. No more hunters will come." Daniel stood slowly, holding Leah in one hand. "Thank you." The golden alien nodded. "You are now bonded human. She is under your care. And you under hers." Leah looked up. "It is the way of my people. When one protects without reward, they become soul linked." Daniel swallowed. "Soul linked?" She smiled. "We live, we grow together." The words echoed inside him, not just romantically, not just magically. It was something deeper. He wasn't alone anymore. Later that day, the ship returned to Earth, but it didn't land in the same backyard. It took them far away to a quiet place in the mountains, where a small home waited. Built by alien hands, designed for both sizes, giant and small. The walls glowed with gentle light. The bed was soft. The kitchen had both a human-sized counter and a tiny table just for her. They lived together there. Day by day. Daniel taught her how to cook eggs. She taught him how to float without machines. He shared music. She shared memories. And every night, before sleep, she curled up near his chest and whispered stories from her starry home. Sometimes she cried. Sometimes he did, too. But they always woke up smiling. Word of their bond spread across galaxies. Stories were told of the tiny alien girl who feared a human would devour her, but found love instead. Not love made of fire or desire, but love made of trust and patience and kindness. One day, Leah stood at the edge of a cliff, looking at Earth's blue sky. Daniel stood beside her. She took his hand and said, "Thank you for not eating me." Daniel burst into laughter. "You're welcome, princess." She smiled. "Not princess, just Leah," and he nodded. Just. Daniel, two souls. Two worlds. One home. Together.